Alright. Hello, I'm Thomas McKenna, and today I'll be performing A Triumph in the Balance, weighing corruption against the 13th Amendment. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States. What freed slave Frederick Douglass called the most horrible and revolting institution of American history was abolished by constitutional amendment in January of 1865. Many know that right triumphed over wrong when the 13th Amendment abolished slavery across America. But many may not know that it almost didn't pass. It is feared that there is no hope for the constitutional amendment. A matter of such importance that only 2 more votes must be procured. Emancipation is not enough. Slavery has haunted us for too long. We have a chance to enshrine the abolition of slavery in the Constitution for all coming time. Remember, Secretary Seward, I am President of the United States, clothed in immense power. You will procure me these votes. Despite having passed the Senate with incredible ease, the 13th Amendment has been blocked in the House of Representatives. It is up to me as Secretary of State, William Seward, to flip only a few more votes. And we must pass the amendment by at least a 2/3 majority before the war ends, because Confederate states will surely bring an end to our abolitionist efforts when they rejoin. However, the congressmen that we need want peace more than an end to slavery. And if any of them should see the amendment as some sort of obstacle to that peace, they will strongly oppose it. For these reasons, I have called in a mix of abolitionists, businessmen, and old friends to assist me in securing the few remaining votes. The clock is ticking. Historians would nickname this band of men the Seward Lobby. Their activities took place 154 years ago and were shrouded in secrecy to begin with. But we do know that the Seward Lobby went to ethically questionable lengths in order to secure the necessary votes. While it was a tragedy that these methods were necessary, the 13th Amendment couldn't have passed without them. As we'll see, the Seward Lobby went to ethically questionable lengths in order to pass the morally righteous 13th Amendment. But as we watch this conflict unfold, let us ask ourselves, were their actions justified? The main operator of the lobby, William N. Bobo, was originally from Tennessee and had just recently made a huge breakthrough with a national newspaper. January 23rd, 1865, 7 days before the vote. Mr. Seward, we have made great progress in our lobbying efforts. We understand that many of the congressmen will be more likely to vote for the amendment if the newspapers aren't breathing down their backs with pro-slavery editorials and articles. You'll be pleased to hear that one of the proprietors of the New York World has promised to have an article written in favor of the amendment. In exchange, I have paid $10,000 in hard cash. $10,000 to pay off a newspaper to publish a pro-amendment editorial. In today's money, this stack of bills would be $176,000 tall. Any upstanding modern-day journalist would be astounded at such a notion. However, the New York World would cease their anti-amendment editorials until the amendment was voted on. Now, Secretary Seward participated in these activities as well. He would bribe the National Intelligencer, a D.C. paper, with a copy of the administration's upcoming policy agenda in exchange for a halt on editorials against the amendment. Now the question, of course, arises. Were there other instances of borderline corrupt activities? Mr. Bobo acknowledges another unorthodox method. There is no doubt, Mr. Seward, that we have had to do some knockdown material arguments. Certain politicians are expecting appointments to high-ranking positions such as that of Minister of Denmark, New York tax assessor, once they leave office in exchange for their support for the amendment. Others are more stubborn. However, you can be assured, Mr. Seward, neither energy, time, or money will be wanting on my part to attain our end. If patriotism fails, money will do. The lobby had already used money to bribe certain newspapers and patronage to gain the votes of politicians. But would these actions be enough? The day of the vote was nearing, and the amendment's chances had taken a turn for the worse. It is the day of the vote, and a political nightmare is upon us. Remember when I said that there are congressmen that value a quick peace agreement over an end to slavery? Well, rumor has it that the South has sent peace commissioners, and President Lincoln knows this is true. There are Southern negotiators waiting for President Lincoln in Virginia Beach, and the amendments will fail if this news reaches Congress, because congressmen will fear that an end to slavery will drive the pro-slavery Southern commissioners away. No peace commissioners, no peace. The amendment's fate lies in a note sent by Congress asking for a confirmation or denial of these rumors. What will the president say? Mr. President, the report is in circulation in the House that peace commissioners are on their way or are in the city and is being used against us. If it is true, I fear we shall lose the bill. Please authorize me to contradict this, if not true. So far as I know, there are no peace commissioners in the city, or likely to be it. President Abraham Lincoln hadn't lied, but it was a borderline move. They weren't in the city, but they were in Virginia. In fact, Lincoln had literally been writing instructions to Secretary Seward, telling him to travel to Fort Monroe to meet the commissioners in Virginia at the same time that he received an urgent message from Capitol Hill. However, the questionable methods of the lobby and Lincoln himself would ensure the passage of the amendment, with only a few votes to spare. Yet, were these men justified in their actions? Now, there are two sides of this question. Some would claim that the ends don't justify the means. The money, the patronage, and Lincoln's own evasive note were both unethical and undermine the very democracy that governs our society. That choosing the most ethical choice is always the right answer. But there is another perspective that claims that the lobby's actions, though unethical, were justified by the obviously righteous 13th Amendment. That it was a tragedy that these methods were necessary, but that they were outweighed by such a meritorious and principled triumph. This unresolved ethical dilemma still haunts us today, but there is something that rings true. Though it is hard to quantify the lobby's exact impact, many New York congressmen switched their votes to be in favor of the amendment, and New York was where the Seward lobby had most prominently operated. Obviously, it would have been better if the amendment could have been passed without these methods. But the actions of men such as Bilbo had indirectly freed the millions of human beings in bondage, and millions more to come. Lincoln would not live to see ratification, but the legacies of him, his secretary, and the lobbyists would live on through the amendment. Thaddeus Stevens, a Republican abolitionist, would reflect on both the tragedy and the triumph of the moment when he said, "The greatest measure of the 19th century was passed by corruption, aided and abetted by the purest man in America. It may have taken bribery, patronage, and evasive statements, but the most horrible and revolting institution of American history had been abolished by the triumphant constitutional amendment in 1860.